Welcome to the Over the Hump podcast. Your gateway to the world of the iconic Brahmin breed of cattle. At BRC Ranch, our passion for Brahmin cattle runs deep. Join us as we delve into the heart of this extraordinary breed, unveiling its rich history, exploring industry trends, and sharing captivating stories that define the American Brahmin. BRC Ranch stands as the pinnacle of Brahmin excellence in America, boasting a decade-long legacy of champions and housing the finest Brahmin bulls worldwide. It's not just about cattle, it's about a legacy that reverberates across ranches and hearts. Brought to you by BRC Ranch, where the Brahmin legacy thrives and stories are woven into the very fabric of ranching. This is Over the Hump. And now your hosts, Brendan Cutrer, Rachel Cutrer, and Keaton Dodd.
Hi guys, welcome to the Over the Hump podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Cutrer, and today I sat down and had a great interview with our newly elected American Junior Brahman Association President, Zach Mosley of Mississippi. He is just a true joy to know and to be around. And when you hear this podcast, you'll definitely see why I say that. So hope you enjoy it, and let's get to the next episode of Over the Hump. Well, hi everyone. This is Rachel Cutrer, host of Over the Hump podcast. And today we have with us our guest, Zach Mosley, who was recently elected as the new president of the American Junior Brahman Association. So welcome, Zach. So I know many of our junior members know you, but we thought it would just be a great opportunity to really let the Brahmin world get to know you and your Brahmin story, and then give us a little insights on the future of our junior program.
Yes, ma'am. So I'm definitely not your typical Brahmin story. My family is a third-generation ranch family that started out on my grandfather's commercial operation in South Alabama. As my dad got older and kind of started his own family, we drifted away from the beef industry and grew up heavily involved in the rodeo circuit, which part of my family still does professionally. Coming up on 5 years ago, my brother Colin and I started drifting away from the rodeo life, and we purchased our first set of Brahmin and American influenced females while he was away at specialty training for the National Guard. Ever since then, our herd has steadily increased in quality and quantity, and my passion for the industry has done nothing but evolve. So that's kind of a short little backstory on me.
Yeah, that's amazing. So where is y'all's ranch located? Where are your cattle headquartered in?
So we are in northeast Mississippi. The biggest town that people might know of would be Starkville, Mississippi, which is about 30 minutes from our house.
Awesome. And y'all got into Brahmins in what year?
It was 2019 when we first started.
Okay, so right at 5 years. Yeah. What was your first All-American that you ever attended?
So it was Hattiesburg, actually, which was 2021, I believe.
Yes. Okay, so Molly and I were just talking about that, and we might just reminisce here a little bit, but Hattiesburg was one of the more recent All-Americans that we did not take cattle to, and we were thinking that the Hattiesburg All-American was during COVID, but am I right, or was that a year off?
So Hattiesburg was still during COVID. COVID would have started in 2020, but it definitely was still going on when we had that All-American. So I would say it was still kind of a struggle.
Yeah, so we did not have a heifer, but we came over because Brandon's family is from Hattiesburg area, and we did a couple of the contests and participated. We just didn't bring a heifer. But I love the fact that that's your first All-American, because a lot of times we see the All-American in Texas or Louisiana, and because that's where most of our members are. But I think it's really important that sometimes we do move it around to other states, maybe with smaller membership numbers, because you never know what show is going to be the gateway that brings in somebody awesome to our breed.
Absolutely.
So you were just elected as the AJBA president in what it would be end of June at the All-American.
Yes, ma'am.
What's the process for that? I know first you have to get elected from your state, but then what's the process for someone who wants to get involved in the AJBA, maybe at a leadership level?
It's a little bit different now than it was several years ago to be on the AJBA board of directors and then be elected into an officer position. And probably what you're referring to, used to the state association more or less nominated their directors for AJBA, and it didn't really go through the national program. More recently, it has been changed to now everything for the AJBA board of directors and officers goes straight through AJBA. So you apply and send in an application directly to AJBA for your director term. And then once you send in that application and you get put on the ballot, we have a general membership election where every member votes on the directors that applied from their state. So, for example, Texas has 4 director holes and they alternate years. So 2 director holes are available in Texas each year. And so if we have 3 candidates for the Texas director positions, all of the AJBA members that reside in the state of Texas get to vote on those 3 candidates for those 2 positions. And then kind of once you are on the board of directors and you've been elected into that, you have to serve on the board for a year before you can run for office. And then once you run for office, it is no longer a general membership election, and officers are elected through a interview process, and the board of directors votes on them actually. So once you get elected from your state onto the AJB board of directors, you have to serve as a general director for a year before you can apply to an officer position. And then once you've been on the board for your first year and you decide that you want to run for office, it goes through an interview process, and then instead of a general membership election, the officers are actually voted on and elected through the board themselves. So the 17 board members, I believe is what we currently have, are the ones that actually vote on who are the officers.
Yeah, so that's really interesting because it's been 20 years since I was in the AJBA, but yeah, the way we did it, or the way it was done back then, is that like we would have our elections at like our TJBA state show, and then basically that would be the kids that go to AJBA. And I really like the new way y'all are doing it.
I believe it was ran like that until 3 years ago. I think it was changed in Hattiesburg.
Oh, okay, yeah, well, great. So that's a really great change. So I was just thinking kind of historical Brahmin stuff. There haven't been that many AJBA presidents from Mississippi. So like props to you for that. I had looked it up and I think the last president from Mississippi was B.J. Dickens back in 2005.
Yes, ma'am.
BJ, by the way, was like Brandon's best friend. Brandon and BJ were on the board together, and BJ is just amazing. But I mean, gosh, that's been 19 years.
Yes, ma'am. That's right. It was 19 years from when Mr. BJ was elected to now my presidency. So I'm the first president from Mississippi in almost 2 decades.
Yeah, that is amazing. So do you know of a guy named Trey Niemeyer?
I know of him. I've never met him personally, but I certainly know of him.
Yeah, so Trey and I showed around the same time together, and he also was just amazing. I think he was from Lumberton, Mississippi, and he was the president. I'm not confirming this, but according to the records, it says he was the president 3 years, which is unprecedented, really, someone to serve 3 terms.
It is. So I have those same records that say he served for 3 years. And so now we actually have, I guess, a bylaw that states that you can only serve president twice. So to my knowledge, he's the only person that ever served more than 2 terms.
And he would be the only one. Do you know, you may not, is there anyone who has served twice even? That's a trivia question.
There has been, actually. The first AJBA president, Miss Grooms from Texas, served twice. And then 3 years later, I believe in 1983, George Toulos from Texas served twice. There's not very many, though. I think that actually might be the only ones that served twice.
And then I had 2 others that I found from Mississippi, Jay Darnell and Tim Dowdy. And I didn't know if you knew any of those.
I know Mr. J pretty well. We do some business with him, and we're partners on some cattle with him, so I know him fairly well. Mr. Tim, I don't know very well. I don't even know him personally. I've definitely heard of him, but we do have a good standing relationship with Mr. Darnell, so it's definitely intriguing to have that close of a relationship with another president that was from Mississippi.
So I know you, Trey, BJ, and Jay, and you're in great company. It's a great list of people. So Mississippi is like small but mighty on their junior board director.
Yes, ma'am, absolutely.
So I have to ask, when you first got into Brahmin, like if you can close your eyes and picture yourself back at your Hattiesburg first All-American, did you ever think one day you would be the president of the organization?
So this question is always kind of reminiscent for me. This was the year that Ryan Beanie was the sitting AJBA president, and I remember going to my first ever membership meeting there in Hattiesburg and seeing the board and the officers and saying, I want to be them one day. So I would definitely say that being the AJBA president was certainly a dream of mine that has now been made true.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that. I mean, probably almost every kid that goes to the All-American. I mean, I can think back to my first All-American was in 1987, and I still know the names of the people that, I looked up to. It was, I'm going to share it because it's fun, but it was Gordy Broussard and his sister, Leslie, from Louisiana, and then Craig Fontenot and his sister, Vicky, from Louisiana, and Judd Cullers. And those were, so I would have been like 8 at the show, and those people were like the seniors, or, like the juniors, the seniors, the older kids at the All-American. And I remember like sitting and watching in the morning. They were like leading their calves to tie outs, and I don't know which one of them, but like one of those kids was leading 2 calves at one time. And I just remember thinking like, they're such a badass. I mean, and it's just cool how that sort of stuff like sticks out to you of people that you look up to. And I got to share my Annie story. You know this story, but our listeners need to hear it. Annie, my daughter, is 9, and she doesn't even show Brahmin. She just comes along and she supports Molly at the shows. But one day, I can't remember exactly how it came up, but at the All-American this year, like you walked by or something, and she was like, "Oh, Mom, that's Zach Mosley. He's my best friend." Really, I didn't even know that you knew Zach Mosley, let alone that y'all are best friends. And it's just so cool because y'all as the junior board are making such an impact on not just the kids that are showing, but literally every kid there, and every kid feels like they feel like they're important and they're part of it and they're part of the group, and it's just amazing. It's a great feeling as a parent to see that.
Yes, ma'am. I remember you told me that story at All-American, and it just makes my heart happy. That's why I do what I do, because even if she's the only kid that I ever impact in my time as an AJBA director, it makes it all worth it to know that I impacted one kid.
Yeah, definitely. So let's talk about the All-American, because I think this is something that it's one of those things that it's such a big event and there's so much planning that goes into it, and y'all execute it really, I mean, flawlessly. For me as an exhibitor and a parent, it's organized, it's well run, but that sort of stuff doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of planning. So maybe just would you kind of walk us through kind of what is some of the planning that y'all do? When do you start planning? When do y'all start talking about it? Things like that?
Yes, ma'am. So there is a lot that goes into planning the All-American each year, and it's certainly something that the board does together with the help from the Youth Activities Committee and the help from the Youth Activities Director, which is currently Miss Monty Alexander. And it's just a big team ordeal. None of us could do it without any of the others. And so it's very cool to see how all of that stuff gets done. But the planning each year starts shortly after the All-American in June. But I will say some things like the locations and dates, stuff like that, are set sometimes years in advance. So that year's board of directors actually sometimes isn't even the ones that have set locations and dates, and that stuff has been predetermined years in advance. But then usually about August or so is when we start planning things and getting some things decided. Like right now, we have had discussions about themes, and we are working on getting a judges list. So just stuff like that takes place now, and then closer to the event, we finish nailing things down. But it definitely takes the entire year to get the event planned and organized.
Yeah, for sure. How do y'all decide the theme each year? Because that's always fun.
Yes, ma'am. So we usually just open it up to the board of directors, and everybody can put a theme in the hat, and then the officer team usually narrows it down to a couple of options, and then the entire board votes on that, and then that's our theme for the year. So this year we actually have decided on a theme, and I think it's going to be really exciting for all of the kids, and it's going to be super fun.
Oh my gosh, I know. I know you probably can't tell it.
I can't just yet, but hopefully we will be able to get that out soon. We are working on getting some more of the details figured out on that, and we'll start getting some things together so that we can share it with all of y'all, so that y'all can be just as excited about it as us.
Hey guys, we hope that you're enjoying the Over the Hump podcast. We've had so many great reviews and great feedback from this podcast, and we've had several people asking how they can support it. So we are proud to announce that we've created the Over the Hump fan club, where you can join and sign up on a yearly basis to help support this podcast and get some really cool merch as well. We have 3 different levels ranging from $40 a year to $250 a year. And at each level, you get some really cool different benefits and different free gifts. For example, at our Trailblazer level, you get a free copy of my really awesome Modern Brahmin coffee table book, which is a 160-page coffee table book featuring the gorgeous photography of Carlos Guizor from Mexico, along with Brahmin history written by me. And then our Supreme Stockman level, which is $250 a year, includes that plus free access to the Brahmin Academy for 1 year. And at our Trailblazer and Supreme Stockman levels, you also get a discount to use in the BRC online store, which you can use for anything that's in the store, including semen, AI certificates, show cattle camp, event registrations, and more. So this is a really great opportunity, especially if you purchase a lot of semen or AI certificates from us. You can join the fan club and get some great discounts to use throughout the whole year. So if you like this podcast and want to help support it, you can sign up for the Over the Hump fan club at shopbrcutrer.com. That's shopbrcutrer.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you are enjoying it. Okay, so how do y'all pick the judges for the All-American?
So that's kind of something that happens through an intricate process. A list of recommendations is given to us from the AJBA Show Committee and Youth Activities Committee. And then from within that list, the AJBA Board of Directors makes their top picks. And then I'm just going to say your name. If Rachel Cutrer is the number 1 pick for the on-show judge, we contact you first. And if you are available, we start getting that stuff worked out. And then if you say you aren't available, or you just don't want to judge this year so that Molly could still show, we go to the second option.
I do find that interesting because I kind of feel like we're always led to believe that, quote, the kids pick the judges. And I guess you do to some degree, but you can only pick from the names that you're given. You know, it's not like y'all have access to the full list, or really any list. And I wonder, do you think that will change with, so, I think last year, ABBA changed the rules to where they only select the judges, I believe, for Houston and the National. And then up to that, after that, shows can pick their own judges. And I think from what I understand, you don't even have to use someone on the ABBA judges list if your show didn't want to. That, that's a recommendation, but it's not a requirement. So do y'all foresee any changes in the way y'all select judges coming up?
So once we get that list back from the ABBA, we can still make adjustments to that list and add judges to it, or remove judges off of that list as the AJBA leadership sees fit. That's just their list of recommendations to us. We don't necessarily have to follow it to a T. It's just the people that they think would do a good job for the All-American. It's still, at the end of the day, the AJBA's decision on who will be the judges each year. So I guess I should say I misspoke just a little bit. Once we get that list of recommendations back from the ABBA, the AJBA leadership can still adjust it as we see fit, whether that means adding another judge to it or taking a judge off of it before we actually vote on it. That's just their recommendation of who they think would do good and who would be a good selection for the judges at the All-American. But at the end of the day, it is still the AJBA's decision, and we don't necessarily have to follow that list to a T.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, and thank you for clarifying that. I want to move on and ask a couple of questions about like what it's like to be a junior board member during the show. My first question is, so I want to give a little background because I have heard that a lot of times you haul your own cattle or you maybe come to the show. Sometimes your parents don't join you or sometimes they do. Is that right?
Sometimes that is true. I do haul to some shows by myself or with friends that I would consider family in the Brahmin breed. It really just depends on the show and where it's at. We have a construction company, so sometimes it's hard for my parents to take off for like the whole week of All-American, whereas like this year my dad came out to West Monroe for the first part of the week, and then he had to go back to one of our jobs, and then he came back for the later part of the week when I was actually showing. So it really just depends on the situation, and each show is kind of different.
So during the week of the All-American, what's the average amount of sleep you get per day?
Not very much. I think most nights that this year's All-American, I ended up getting back to my hotel sometime between midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning by the time I finished director duties and then took care of all my calves and got everything ready for the next day, whether that meant, having to bathe some of them or whatnot, and then getting back to the hotel and getting ready for bed. And then I would get up at 5 o'clock every morning to get back to the barn and get all my stuff taken care of before I had to go work. So I would say most nights I probably got 5 hours of sleep.
Oh, wow. And how many calves did you bring this year to the All-American?
I took 10 calves to the All-American this year.
Oh my gosh! Literally. Zach, are you for real?
I'm for real. I took 10 this year. That's the most I've ever hauled to a show. And I hope I don't ever haul 10 again. It wasn't terrible, but it definitely wasn't easy.
Oh my gosh, I'm floored. I was not expecting that. We take maximum is 2. Ideally, I want to take 1 head, but we did take 2 this year because Molly needed to get like a younger heifer out to get her some experience. But 10 is unimaginable. Wow.
Yes, it's definitely a handful, especially for a junior show and having to work the whole week and whatnot.
Oh my gosh. Did you literally show every day of the show? Like showmanship, bulls, heifers?
I did. I didn't have any bulls this year. I left my bull at home for the All-American this year. Oh, I'm so sorry. I did take my bull to the All-American. So I did show in every show. I showed showmanship. I had gray females that were owned, red females that were owned. I had a couple bred nones, and then I have an owned bull. So I showed in every single show.
Wow. So do you have like an Apple Watch or anything like that you keep track of your steps when you're working the ring and showing?
I do. It's crazy going back and looking over those numbers. Most days I averaged walking about 10 miles in the barn.
Wow. Well, like as a parent, I remember when Molly was starting, the 8-year-old, 9-year-old, whatever the age is she can show. And it's it gives the parent a lot of anxiety, like being on the sidelines and sending, your little, 70-pound daughter in there. And the junior board support that they give those kids is just unbelievable, and like when Molly was showing her first year, I think Wesley Yannick and like Harley Wade were some of the board members, and they would always just keep an eye on her and kind of keep her in their eyesight, even stay close to her. And it really just means so much to parents just working the ring and being there. But do you have any pet peeves when you're working the ring of things that bug you that kids do?
I don't know that I would say I have any pet peeves necessarily. But I guess I would say it is definitely nice when exhibitors remember that we have been working in the ring all day, and sometimes it gets really exhausting. So it's nice when exhibitors and even parents that are on the side of the ring stay patient with us because we are trying to help everyone. Um, and so sometimes, if somebody's in a corner and gets overlooked by us or takes us a second to get over to them, it's nice when they're patient with us because we are trying.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I don't even know how many classes there are, but a lot. I mean, I would say maybe over 40. It could be over 80. I don't know, in a show. And so when we come in as like exhibitors, it's like fresh, it's that moment, it's our class, especially if you only have one or two head. But y'all are consistently doing that all day. You have to keep that same level of support and attentiveness for hours upon end. And that takes a lot. I know. It's very appreciated. Well, I thought it would be something to do for fun is to talk through, to quickly list all the different contests at the All American and then have you give them a rating of, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much you like being in these contests. Are you game for this?
That's a hard one, Miss Rachel, but let's give it a shot.
Okay, and they're in no certain order, but you can just tell us, give us a rating. So 1 is you hate the contest, 10 is you love it. Public speaking.
Definitely a 10 for public speaking. I love public speaking.
See, that one's hard for me. But okay, sales talk.
Let's go with a 6 for sales talk. I enjoy it, but it's definitely not my favorite contest.
Okay, photography.
Again, I enjoy it, but we're going to put it at a 5.
5. Ooh, that's rough. I will say I like photography, but it's one of those contests that's kind of like sketchy, I feel like, because how do you know if the kid actually took the photo or not? I think a true photography contest would be like, let's get all the kids, put them on a bus, take them out to a local ranch, give them an hour with a camera, and then submit their pictures. And then that would be a true photography contest. But I kind of agree with you on that one. Okay, how about marketing?
I love the marketing contest. It's one of my favorites. So we'll put it at a 8.
8. What's your thoughts on moving from the poster to the marketing contest?
Personally, I love it just because I enjoy the digital marketing side of things more. I do think that it's sometimes a little bit harder for like the younger kids, the novice division, that it's harder for them to build something on a computer for a marketing contest than it is for them to get a poster board and put stuff on a poster. But I think it's innovative and it's kind of staying up with current times. So I think it's a good situation changing from from the poster to the marketing contest.
I definitely agree. I love this change. And I think you might be surprised at the technology level of kids because, like, even Molly, she's 13, but she's like been using Canva and other things like that for years. And it really just encourages them. As a mom, I am super relieved that we don't have to do the poster anymore because, like, people are getting real on their posters. They're like bedazzling stuff all over these posters, and they've got like electronic movements on these posters. And no, posters are hard. I was so glad when y'all ditched the poster contest. Love that. Okay, how about showmanship?
Showmanship is a 10 for me. I think that that's one of the contests that just gives every single kid the opportunity to showcase the hard work that they've put in over the year. And you don't necessarily have to have the best calf in the ring. So I love showmanship a lot.
Me too. Yeah, I give it a 10. All right, cattle show. How do you rate that?
Probably an 8 in terms of like the own show.
How about the bread and own show?
We're going to put the bread and owns at a 9. Again, I think that gives the exhibitors that have started their own herd a chance to showcase their hard work.
Yeah. So you like them all, basically. Photography is your least favorite. I get that. I can get on board with that. So of all the places we've had, okay, so let's go through, since Hattiesburg was your first. You had Hattiesburg, then Texarkana.
Then Mercedes,
okay. Then Texarkana last year, and this year, West Monroe. Yes. So where's your favorite place that you've been to an All-American?
I think that's a really hard question because I could give you reasons why I love each of those All-Americans and why they could all be potential options for my favorite. But I'm going to have to go with Texarkana in 2023 because that was the year I made it on the AJBA board of directors. I only took 2 head to the show that year. It was a nice, easy show. I really enjoyed the location. It was a good barn. So definitely Texarkana would be my favorite All-American that I've been to.
I like that. I like that one too. I liked Mercedes. I really liked that one. People complained that it was kind of a long way, but I loved that facility and stuff. I thought it was good.
I agree. I really enjoyed Mercedes. It was quite a long haul for me, but it was still a good show.
Okay, so just a few more questions. Are there, and you may not be able to really talk about these, but if you can, we will. But are there any changes or new things that are maybe on the horizon for next year?
There are some changes and some, I guess, quote unquote improvements that are going to be coming to AJBA and to the All-American in 2025. There's a lot of stuff in the works that we're trying to make better for the kids and provide a better experience for them so that we can develop them even more for their future. I can't really go into details about anything that's changing, but there's definitely a lot of great stuff on the horizon that we are really excited about, and we hope that it unfolds into being what we want it to be for all of the exhibitors.
Well, we're going to trust you. We have full faith in you, Zach, you and your board. I'm sure it'll be great. Okay, 2 questions before we wrap it up. Well, let me take a pause actually for a minute before we get into our last 2 questions. Is there anything that we missed or that you might want to share before we kind of wrap things up?
I guess I would just say it's an extreme honor to be able to serve as the AJBA president over the next year alongside some of my best friends on the officer team and the board of directors. And I'm looking forward to a year of what I hope can be full of prosperity for the AJBA and provide a better experience for the kids that come under us. I've had a great time in the AJBA from the people that came before me, and so that's kind of my goal as the president, is to be that for the kids that come after me, provide better opportunities to them.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so we like to wrap up by asking each participant to share with us their favorite Brahmin animal of all time. And it could either be, an animal you own or an animal you've, seen in Brahmin Journal magazines from the 1950s. It could be anything. So what is Zach Mosley's favorite Brahmin animal?
I'm going to have to go with my bred and owned for this year, or one of my bred and owns from this year. Her name is Nova. She is actually a captain daughter, so she's out of some y'all's genetics. But me and that heifer are just like 2 peas in a pod. We are inseparable, and I'm her person. And so I would definitely say she's my favorite cow ever.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so last question. How many head of cattle is Zach Mosley taking to the All-American in 2025?
Not 10. Definitely not 10. I'm hoping for like a comfortable 5. We'll go with 5.
You need to take 1. You need to take 1 animal because you're getting really busy. Oh, gosh. No, I just threw that in because I'm still shocked that you took 10 head this year by yourself.
I know, it was definitely a lot. I don't know that I would know what to do with myself if I only took 1 head to All-American.
You can do fun things like go bowling or go to a movie or go to the water park.
Actually, as shocking as that is, I did go across the street this year. We offered the Surge Entertainment thing, the fun cards to the kids. And I actually took time out of the week and I went over there with some friends for, I don't know, probably an hour or so. And we bowled and, done some fun stuff over there.
Yeah, you gotta do that and mix it up with, show and fun and friends, and it's great. Well, Zach, thank you so much. I have really enjoyed this conversation of, getting to know your story better and hear some of the plans for the All-American. So we just really appreciate you joining us. And maybe when we close, give our listeners like a quick timeline or time frame of like, if somebody really thinks the All-American sounds cool and they want to support the All-American, how can they get involved with sponsoring or supporting the AJBA? And then we'll sign off.
So with that, if you do want to sponsor the All-American or be a supporter of the AJBA, you can certainly feel free to reach out to myself if you have my contact information, or if you want to call the ABBA office or go on the ABBA website through the contact form and reach out to us. We would be happy to assist you in whatever means that is, whether it is you want to sponsor, you want to volunteer your time and your services. We can definitely work with you on anything that you want to do.
All right. So thank you again, Zach. We wish you all the best this year. And thanks again for listening to Over the Hump podcast.
Thank you so much, Miss Rachel. It was an honor to be here.
You've been listening to the Over the Hump podcast. Our passion is Brahman cattle, and it runs deep. And this show is about its rich history, industry trends, and stories that define the American Brahmin. We hope you've enjoyed the show. If you did, make sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe. We'll be back soon. But in the meantime, find us on Instagram and Facebook at BR Cutrer. See you next time on the Over the Hump podcast.